Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday morning meditation. This is the day that the Lord has made. And you know what? We're going to rejoice and be glad in it. Why don't you hit that share button this morning and share this live with your family and friends? Go ahead and hit that share button, put some hearts and thumbs up in there so I know that you have shared this live with your family and friends. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, let's get right into it this wonderful Wednesday morning. Our focus word for this month is hope. Hope is our word for this month. Hope is our focus. Our scripture reference is coming from Hebrews 10 and 23. That's Hebrews 10 and 23. And it reads, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for who promised is faithful." Again, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. You know, I have a quick story for you this morning, family. I recently downloaded this app called Angel because I kept seeing it, and they were advertising these sound movies, and I was, let me see what these sound movies are about. And well, on Sunday I watched the first sound movie, and it was called Sound of Freedom, and we watched it after Sunday service, and it was real good. And it had my eyes watering, um, like it was allergy season with no Zyrtec. And I mean, it was a pretty good movie. And um, I'll probably get into telling you a little bit about that probably another time. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this movie that I watched last night. Last night, I watched this movie called Sound of Hope. The first movie I watched was called Sound of Freedom, but this one was called Sound of Hope. And this movie was about, it was a true story, and it was about a first lady and her husband. And she was feeling hopeless because she had lost her grandmother who had raised her, and her mother was killed traumatically in front of her as a child. And she had was just getting very frustrated. She had a son who was nonverbal, and she had a daughter, and she was doing all of her housework, and her husband was doing all of his preacher things. And she had kind of gotten frustrated, and she said, "Let me go out for a moment." And so she went outside, and she was crying out to God. And as she was doing that, and feeling like she had no hope, um, she was crying out to God. And suddenly she saw some children playing in the field. And when she did, she felt like that was her answer. And so she went home and called and made an appointment. And when she called to make the appointment, she called to make the appointment to learn how to adopt children. Well, when she did this, her husband overheard her making this appointment to learn how to adopt children. He was like, hold on a moment. Um, who was that you were on the phone talking to? And and again, I said he was the town pastor. And she says, "Oh yeah, I was going to talk to you about that a little later." God told me earlier today, when I was talking to him during the time when you remember when I ran out of the house while I was feeling hopeless? Well, he told me that I should adopt. And he said, well, you sure he was talking about children? Maybe he was saying maybe you should adopt maybe a cat or maybe a dog. And he said, no, no, no. I heard him. He was clear. He said children. And he said, well, we already have two of those and we can barely feed those. And she says, well, God will provide. And so he was like, oh, okay. And so we know God is a provider. And so this is very powerful to me. And it took me right to the verse that we were talking about in Hebrews 10 and 23. Um, it reminded me of it. We often go through things that seem to be unbearable while we're in the midst of it. And we feel like we just can't handle it. And right when we feel like we can't handle it, guess what happens? Something else happens in our life. Something else happens to make it seem like it's a snowball effect. And it seems like, oh, I felt like that was unbearable. Then something else happens. And in the midst of that, and so God says that, hey, I'm never going to put more on you than you can handle. And so if I give you something else, then I'm going to be there to take care of you. God will allow something else to happen. You know why? Because he said, let us hold on to him unswervingly to the hope that we profess. Why should we do it? It's simple. Because he is faithful. It's no rocket science here. Because he is faithful. Let me tell you, God is faithful. That in this little rural town that this pastor and first lady adopted 3 displaced children. And you know what? After they adopted these 3 displaced children, 22 other families jumped on the bandwagon and ended up adopting 77 other children. And even the social worker ended up joining the church. So everyone jumped in and got involved. This just renewed my hope. This has been a trying year for me, but one thing I know has not changed. God has remained faithful in the midst of it all. God has not only remained faithful to me, but he has remained faithful to you. Let's go ahead and do our confession. Talisha will continue to hold strong to her hope when things appear not to work in her favor. Let me say that again. Talisha will continue to hold strong to her hope when things appear not to work in her favor. Let's repeat this 10 times throughout the day, along with our scripture reference, which is Hebrews 10 and 23. And remember that no matter what you're going through, God will always remain faithful. Stay tuned to our announcements.
Thank you for starting your day with us with this meditation moment. Begin your mornings at 6 a.m. on a note of peace and mindfulness with us. It's our pleasure to guide you through a serene, meditative journey. Let's embrace tranquility together every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as we delve into this practice of presence and awareness. Join us and transform your day with a touch of mindfulness. Broaden your horizons and engage with our community. Every Thursday, join us for Bible study at our Birmingham venue at 11:30 a.m. for an in-person session, or tune in online for our virtual session at 6:30 p.m. Additionally, take advantage of our food pantry and clothing closet, accessible from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Seize the opportunity to gain knowledge and foster connections. Experience an uplifting blend of fellowship and faith, both in person and virtually. Join us every Sunday for the soul-stirring worship service at 9 a.m. at our Birmingham site, located at 923 Graymont Avenue West. Not in Birmingham, our Huntsville community gathers at 706 Kentwood Drive at 12:30 p.m. for a harmonious celebration of worship. We are filled with excitement and looking forward to welcoming you with open hearts.